High-end brands like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Christian Dior, and others are being listed as victims in a newly filed counterfeit goods case in South Georgia.
Imagine dropping $12,000 on something that was supposed to scream status, success, arrival. Now picture that exact item being worth less than $200 just a few years later. Not because it's fake, not because it's damaged, but because the brand behind it collapsed in real time. That's not normal depreciation. That's a financial free fall. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. This isn't happening to one unlucky label. It's happening to luxury itself. Right now, across handbags, watches, clothing, and shoes, once iconic luxury names are quietly imploding. Not with front-page headlines, not with dramatic bankruptcy alarms, but with something way more ruthless: resale prices. Because resale doesn't care about marketing, it doesn't care about celebrity endorsements. It doesn't care what the store lighting looks like or how soft the velvet rope feels. Resale is where the truth lives. And the truth is ugly. Luxury items that once held value, like real assets, are now worth pennies on the dollar. Some lose 70, 80, or even 90% of their value the moment they leave the store. Which means if you own them, you're not holding a symbol of wealth. You're holding a liability with a logo. And no, this isn't about being smart or dumb with fashion. This is about a system that trained people to believe luxury was an investment, while quietly turning it into mass-produced inventory. So, before we go any further, if you like breakdowns that save you money and expose the traps nobody warns you about, make sure you subscribe to Frugal Finds for you right now. Because this gets wilder as we go. Here's the rule luxury used to live by. Scarcity creates value. Here's the rule luxury lives by now. Discounts create volume, and volume kills value. Once a brand floods outlet malls, once its logo starts showing up on clearance racks, once everyone can grab it on sale, the market notices, collectors notice, resellers notice, and eventually even investors notice. That's why some luxury items today appreciate like real estate, while others depreciate like a rental car driven straight off a cliff. Same industry, same price tags, completely different outcomes. Luxury brands don't usually collapse with a dramatic explosion. They rot slowly, quietly, one discount at a time. And nowhere is that rot more visible than in what I call the outlet death spiral. The moment a luxury brand realizes it can't survive on aspiration anymore and chooses volume instead, this is where value goes to die. Let's start with the most obvious example: Michael Kors. There was a time when that logo actually meant something. You didn't buy it casually. You bought it because you wanted to signal progress. $300 at a department store. Glossy packaging. That little gold logo whispering, "I've made it." Then the brand got hungry. By 2017, Michael Kors had opened over 1,000 stores worldwide. 1,000. They flooded the market so aggressively that nearly 40% of American women owned at least one Michael Kors product. At that point, it stopped being a status symbol. It became a uniform. Luxury relies on scarcity. Michael Kors chose saturation, and the market punished them immediately. Resale value? 15 to 25% of retail if you're lucky. That means a bag you paid $300 for is now worth maybe $60. Not after years of wear, not after damage, almost immediately. That's not luxury, that's depreciation with branding. Meanwhile, truly exclusive brands, some of them actually appreciate. They behave like assets. Michael Kors behaves like a rental car. The second you drive it off the lot, the value falls off a cliff. The company tried to reverse course. They closed over 100 stores. They talked about reclaiming exclusivity, but the damage was already done. Younger buyers saw the logo and didn't think of success. They thought outlet mall, and once a brand gets filed into that mental category, it rarely escapes. Coach didn't just stumble into the same trap. They sprinted into it. Coach tried something clever in 2017. They rebranded their parent company as Tapestry Inc., as if changing the name would make people forget what happened to the product. It didn't. Coach's real problem wasn't marketing. It was math. More revenue started coming from factory outlets than from full-price stores. Think about that. The majority of Coach customers never paid full price. They paid $60 at an outlet while believing they owned luxury. That's a psychological trick, not a sustainable business model. Resale value tells the real story. A $300 Coach bag resells for around $60. That's an 80% loss. At that point, your kitchen blender holds value better. The company tried everything. Collaborations, streetwear pivots, influencers, new logos, new campaigns. None of it fixed the core issue. Why? Because their core customer base aged into their 60s and 70s, while younger buyers treat loud, visible logos like a contagious disease. Coach became trapped between two realities: an aging audience that doesn't want change and a younger audience that doesn't want the brand at all. That's not a growth problem. That's a dead end. Then there's Kate Spade, the most painful example of all. Kate Spade didn't collapse because it was ugly. It collapsed because the world moved on. Bright colors, playful patterns, cheerful designs. That aesthetic worked beautifully in 2012. But fashion shifted. Minimalism took over. Muted tones, clean lines, no obvious branding. Kate Spade stayed loud while the world went quiet. When it was acquired for billions, people assumed it would get revitalized. Instead, cost-cutting began immediately. Quality slipped, prices didn't, and resale prices exposed the truth. A $300 Kate Spade bag now resells for $30 to $50. That's not depreciation, that's evaporation. Fast fashion improved just enough to close the gap. Why pay luxury prices for mid-tier quality when cheaper brands look just as good in photos and feel close enough in real life? Then tragedy struck. The founder passed away, and with her went the creative soul of the brand. Sales dropped sharply. The company openly admitted it lost relevance with customers under 35. That's corporate language for the future left without us. And here's the unifying lesson across all three brands. Once luxury starts relying on outlets, once discounts become permanent, once full price becomes optional, resale collapses, status collapses, and eventually the brand collapses. Outlets don't save luxury brands. They embalm them. They keep the body looking intact while the value disappears underneath. And if you think this is bad, wait until you see what happens to brands stuck in the middle. Too expensive to be practical, not exclusive enough to be luxury. That's where things get truly brutal. If outlets kill luxury slowly, then the middle kills it, violently. There's a dangerous price zone where brands go to die. Not cheap enough to be sensible, not exclusive enough to be aspirational. This is where logic collapses, and where resale value gets absolutely destroyed. Let's start with a brand that should have been untouchable. Burberry, real heritage, British history, iconic trench coats. A brand that once stood for understated wealth and old money restraint. So what went wrong? Greed. Burberry spent years raising prices without increasing value. New leadership later admitted it openly, calling those increases unjustified. That's corporate language for, we charged more because we thought we could, and customers noticed. But the damage didn't start there. That famous plaid, once a mark of sophistication, became one of the most counterfeited patterns in fashion history. It spread everywhere, on hats, scarves, knockoff jackets, street vendors, and cheap copies that looked close enough from 10 feet away. At one point, football hooligans in the UK adopted it as a uniform. That's not the audience luxury brands want. In 2018, Burberry tried to protect exclusivity in the worst possible way. They burned $37 million worth of unsold inventory, rather than discount it. Literally destroyed it. The backlash was instant. Environmental outrage. Brand trust collapsed, and the market response was brutal. Burberry stock dropped more than 50% in a single year, becoming one of the worst performing luxury stocks in Europe. Those $2,000 trench coats are now selling for under $400 on resale sites. That's not luxury depreciation, that's panic pricing. Burberry ended up trapped. Too expensive for regular buyers, not exclusive enough for the truly wealthy. Luxury purgatory. And it gets worse when we move to watches. Tag Heuer. There was a time when owning a tag meant you'd arrived. You weren't Rolex rich, but you weren't mall watch broke either. It was the perfect middle, and that was the problem. Tag positioned itself between $1,500 and $5,000, a zone that used to feel safe. Then, two things happened. First, Apple Watches arrived and started doing things. Health tracking, notifications, payments, fitness, updates. Suddenly, spending $2,000 on something that only told time felt outdated. Second, Rolex became an asset. Certain Rolex models didn't just hold value, they appreciated. So buyers faced a choice. Buy technology that actually does something today, or buy a watch that behaves like a store of value tomorrow. Tag offered neither. Resale tells the story. Buy a tag today, and it loses 40 to 60% of its value almost instantly. Meanwhile, Rolex owners sometimes make money just wearing their watches. Tag owners subsidize someone else's discount. It didn't help that Tag flooded malls and airport duty-free shops. Nothing says prestige like a sales associate chasing you through a terminal while you pretend to take a phone call and speed walk away. Collectors even have a phrase. A tag is the watch you buy before you know better. That reputation sticks. And when your brand becomes a stepping stone instead of a destination, resale collapses. Quick check-in here. If you're getting value from this and you want more breakdowns like this every week, hit subscribe on Frugal Finds for you so you don't miss the next one. Then there's Fossil, the quiet tragedy. Fossil sold 14 million watches in 2014. By 2022, 6 million. That's not a decline. That's extinction in slow motion. The Apple Watch didn't compete with Fossil. It obliterated the entire category. Why buy a $200 fashion watch when the same money gets you a device that tracks your heart, plays music, syncs with your life, and updates itself? Fossil stock tells the story better than any headline. From 120 Heuers to under $5, a 96% collapse. I've seen garage sale items hold value better. Then came the identity crisis. Fossil makes watches for Michael Kors, for Armani, for Diesel. So what exactly is a Fossil watch anymore? Nobody knows. Even worse, their attempt at smartwatches landed horribly. Reviewers basically called them the worst of both worlds. Bad technology, zero heritage. Like putting a lawnmower engine inside a Ferrari shell and calling it innovation. Today, Fossil watches sit in department stores at full price for months before inevitably hitting 70% clearance. Everyone knows the cycle. Just wait. And here's the unifying truth across Burberry, Tag Heuer, and Fossil. The middle is where brands go to die. Too expensive to justify, too ordinary to feel special. And when resale collapses, the illusion of luxury collapses with it. But things get even stranger when we look at brands that didn't just lose value. They lost relevance entirely, because fashion didn't just change price points, it changed what wealth looks like. And that's where the next collapse gets uncomfortable. Luxury didn't just get cheaper, it got louder. And in today's world, loud is the fastest way to lose value. Because the biggest shift in modern luxury isn't the price, it's the taste. The new elite doesn't want to look rich anymore. They want to look invisible. That's where the idea of quiet luxury took over. Muted colors, no logos, no flexing, clothes that whisper wealth instead of screaming it. And brands that didn't adapt are collapsing in real time. Let's talk about Versace. Versace built its empire on excess, gold chains, Baroque prints, Medusa heads everywhere. In the 1990s, that worked. Everyone wanted to look rich. Today, looking rich can look insecure, like you're trying too hard. Resale numbers expose it. Most Versace clothing resells for 25 to 35% of retail. Meanwhile, quiet luxury brands like Bottega Veneta hold nearly double that. Same price range, completely different outcome. Then came the moment that made collectors nervous. Michael Kors' parent company bought Versace, the same corporate machine that pushed Michael Kors into outlet purgatory. That wasn't just a merger. That was a warning. Because once a luxury brand starts showing up on discount racks, wealthy buyers stop paying full price. They just wait. And waiting kills value. Versace became trapped in the past, dressing an era that no longer exists. Now compare that to Ralph Lauren, an American icon, a brand built on preppy aspiration and old money fantasy. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Ralph Lauren is 85 years old, and when a brand's entire identity lives inside one person's vision, succession becomes a problem no boardroom can magically fix. The Hamptons look worked when people wanted to look like they summered in the Hamptons. Today's younger buyers would rather look like they just left a warehouse rave in Berlin. The numbers are brutal. Over 50% of Ralph Lauren sales now come from discount channels. That means someone paid $400 for a polo, while someone else paid $90 for the same thing at the outlet. That's not luxury, that's an impatience. Tax, resale confirms it. Purple Label suits that once commanded $5,000 now move for under $200 on resale. That's a 75% collapse. Not because the suits are bad, but because the brand trained customers to never pay full price. And once that habit forms, it never goes away. Then we reach the brands that lost relevance entirely. Jimmy Choo. For 2 decades, Jimmy Choo owned the red carpet. Celebrities name-dropped the shoes. Award shows were free marketing. Then something changed. Celebrities stopped caring. Today's stars want unknown designers, not brands their stylists already wore in 2008. Resale numbers are devastating. Shoes that retailed for $1,000 now sit on consignment sites for $150 to $250, unsold for months. And the final nail? Work-from-home culture. Turns out nobody needs $900 stilettos for Zoom calls. Comfort killed glamour. And finally, the most frozen-in-time brand of all, Movado. A watch design so iconic it stopped evolving in 1947. That single dot dial was revolutionary 80 years ago. Today, it can feel like a brand that ran out of ideas and monetized nostalgia instead. Resale tells the truth. Watches that retail for $1,000 resell for under $200, sometimes under $100. Collectors don't call them luxury. They call them fashion watches with Swiss prices. And when watch enthusiasts become your anti-marketing department, recovery gets nearly impossible. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Luxury didn't collapse because people got poorer. It collapsed because people got smarter. They learned that logos don't equal value, discounts destroy prestige, outlets erase scarcity, and resale never lies. Real luxury today behaves like an asset. Fake luxury behaves like inventory. If a brand needs constant sales to survive, if it floods outlets, if everyone owns it, it's no longer luxury. It's just expensive mass production. So, if you're buying luxury, hoping it holds value, remember this. Scarcity creates worth. Discipline protects it. And once a brand trades exclusivity for volume, the collapse has already begun. If this video changed how you see luxury even once, hit the like button and subscribe to Frugal Finds for you. Drop a comment with the brand that shocked you the most. Because the smartest money move isn't buying luxury, it's knowing which luxury is already dying.